The night I drove away from that corporate Christmas party, I had exactly $38 in my wallet, a cardboard box of desk supplies resting in the passenger seat, and the echo of 200 people laughing at me still ringing in my ears. The worst part wasn't the public humiliation. It was the fact that my wife was one of the people laughing. At 22 years old, newly married, I had spent every single day pouring my soul into a commercial construction company owned by my father-in-law. I worked longer hours than anyone else in that building, trying to prove I belonged. Yet the final image I have of my wife from that night is her covering her mouth with a champagne glass, shaking with laughter as her father dangled brand-new car keys in front of her sister. Meanwhile, I was left standing on stage, holding a printed pink slip and a single $2 bill like the punchline of a cruel joke. I drove north out of Denver, on Interstate 25 with no destination, no plan, and absolutely no idea that the next 14 months would completely rewrite my life. To understand how I ended up on that stage, you have to understand the world I married into. I grew up in Colorado Springs, the son of a plumber who came home every night smelling of copper pipe and soldering flux. My family wasn't wealthy, but we were genuinely happy. When I met Megan Hargrove during my junior year at the University of Denver, she seemed entirely different from the elite crowd she ran with. She was sharp, witty, and seemingly indifferent to status. What I didn't realize at 22 was that her indifference was just a carefully rehearsed performance. Her father, Gerald Hargrove, was the billionaire CEO of Hargrove Structural Solutions, a massive commercial firm with offices stretching across Denver, Phoenix, and Dallas. When Gerald offered me an entry-level project coordinator position after our engagement, I accepted immediately, fueled by love and a naive desire to build a career from the ground up. Our wedding outside Boulder was a grand, expensive affair entirely funded and controlled by her family. My parents sat in the audience looking overwhelmed, but immensely proud, with my dad wearing a dry-cleaned suit he'd owned for 6 years. Gerald co-signed on our Highlands townhouse, a move that subtly ensured I would never truly be the master of my own home. At work, I threw myself into the mud and the steel. I earned the respect of rough site supervisors and cynical subcontractors because I treated them the way my father treated his clients. I stayed late cataloging change orders, visited quiet job sites on weekends, and made sure my project documentation was flawless. A field supervisor with decades of experience once told me I was the only coordinator who actually understood the physical reality of the paperwork. I felt like I was earning my stripes, but I was completely blind to the invisible ceiling built over my head. The reality check arrived when Megan's younger sister, Qley, joined the company fresh out of college with a marketing degree and zero construction experience. Because she was Gerald's favorite, a custom position was manufactured for her. Through an HR routing error, I discovered her starting salary was over 30% higher than mine, complete with an unrestricted company card and lavish client trips. When I gently brought up my frustrations to Megan, pointing out that I had just been passed over for a senior role given to an outsider, she brushed it off. She told me I was being overly sensitive and that her father always rewarded results. Taking her advice, I requested a direct meeting with Gerald. He sat behind his massive desk, listened with a polite, vacant smile, and told me to just keep doing what I was doing. What developed next wasn't a promotion. It was a trap. The breaking point arrived on December 14th at the annual Hargrove Christmas Gala in downtown Denver. It was a massive production with hundreds of clients, staff, and political figures. After a long speech celebrating the company's record-breaking year, Gerald called Qley up to the stage. He announced that she had exceeded all expectations and unveiled a scale model of a brand-new $65,000 BMW waiting for her in the garage, fully paid for. The ballroom erupted in thunderous applause. Megan was standing right next to me, clapping frantically with pure pride beaming from her face. Then the spotlight swung directly onto me. Gerald called my name and Megan nudged my arm, urging me forward. I walked up to the stage thinking this might finally be the recognition for the massive Ridgeline Business Park project I had brought in ahead of schedule and under budget. Instead, Gerald reached into his jacket, pulled out a single $2 bill, and spoke directly into the microphone, telling the entire room that I had been a real character this year. Before the crowd even finished chuckling, His executive assistant stepped up and handed me a folded white envelope. I opened it right there on stage. It was an immediate termination notice citing organizational restructuring, with a label slapped across the front that read, "Now jobless." The room broke into roaring laughter. When I looked out at our table, Megan wasn't shocked or defensive. She was smiling, sipping her champagne, making a conscious choice that her family's approval was worth more than her husband's dignity. I placed the $2 bill on the podium, put the letter in my pocket, walked back to grab my coat and told her I was leaving. She told me not to overreact. Those were the last words she ever said to me in person. I spent the next 3 days sleeping in my childhood bedroom in Colorado Springs, letting the sudden silence wash over me. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Megan that I chose to ignore. My father didn't ask for grand explanations. He just sat with me in the garage and asked what I wanted to do next. That question cleared away all the noise. I didn't want revenge. I wanted independence. I wanted to build something so entirely mine that no arrogant executive could ever hand me a punchline on a stage again. I had 4 years of deep, hands-on project coordination experience, an unblemished record from the Ridgeline project, and $19,000 in a personal savings account that Megan had never paid attention to. I hired a local attorney, filed for divorce 6 days after the party, and set up shop in a short-term rental. The humiliation had completely cured me of fear. I began calling every subcontractor and field supervisor I had ever worked with, asking them about the deep systemic flaws in the industry. My former supervisor, Dale Ferris, met me for coffee and confirmed my worst suspicions. He revealed that Gerald had actively blocked my advancement and that the senior staff had been privately disgusted by the Christmas party stunt. More importantly, Dale highlighted a massive vulnerability. Hargrove Structural, like most mid-sized construction firms, was losing millions because their field operations and corporate project management software were completely misaligned. Change orders were routinely lost, and field crews were operating on outdated blueprints because the existing software was too complicated for a foreman to use on a muddy job site at dawn. I partnered with Brennan, a brilliant software developer from my university days, who was eager to escape his corporate tech job. Together, we possessed the perfect combination of field knowledge and engineering capability. We spent weeks dissecting the flaws of the massive, expensive software platforms on the market. They had all been built by tech executives who had never stepped foot on a construction site. We designed a lean, mobile-first communication platform engineered specifically for the men and women working in the field. By May, we had launched 3 pilot programs with subcontractors who trusted my integrity. By August, those pilots turned into lucrative, recurring paid accounts. We named the company Ridgeline Operations, a deliberate nod to the project Gerald had mocked. As Ridgeline began to gain traction, the divorce proceedings turned into a battleground. Gerald had provided Megan with an expensive corporate attorney from a premier firm, whose opening strategy was to strip me of everything, claiming my contributions to our asset pool were nominal. However, my attorney, a precise and relentless advocate named Paula Tran, was quietly documenting our rapid growth. By October, Ridgeline had expanded into Arizona through a new partner, Alexis, who possessed deep ties to the Phoenix development market. In November, everything shifted when we secured a massive 12-month contract to manage a $120 million mixed-use development in Dallas. The deal was so large it caught the attention of an angel investor, who immediately injected $200,000 of seed capital into our company. The Denver Business Journal ran a small, 4-paragraph feature on our seed round. I didn't realize Gerald Hargrove kept tabs on local startup news until my phone lit up on a Thursday morning with his caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. His message was a masterclass in corporate revisionist history. He spoke in a measured, professional tone, claiming he had always seen incredible potential in me, and suggested we meet to discuss a lucrative partnership or licensing agreement for Ridgeline. He asked if we could put the past behind us and speak like businessmen. I listened to the recording twice, feeling an overwhelming sense of clarity. The man who had tried to destroy my professional reputation in front of 300 people was now chasing me because I had solved a problem his own multi-million-dollar company couldn't fix. I forwarded the voicemail straight to Paula, Tran, the timing was perfect.